Welcome to Thinking Outside the Soil with your host, Shani Alfalfaseed, where we get to talk story and touch on topics about hydroponics and the farmers who grow the crops and creatures we need to eat. Good morning, and happy Aloha Friday from Blooming Health Farms. And thank you for being with me and Bertha here on another beautiful day. Every morning when I get to Alpha Site, this gosling, well, she's not a gosling anymore, this goose here greets me with all the honks and cheers of joy, and she just harasses me until I throw out a handful of sprouts. And then after they're gone, she comes and finds me and tags along and does this honking and cute little things that you can hear in the background. We love our morning chores, and it's a great way to get my day started. I come in and I visit her, and we actually walk around and I stick my arms out and flap, and we do some silly goose things, and I just love how these feathered friends invigorate my life on a daily basis. Today, I want to share with you a little bit of a secret. Now, many of you may know from listening to the show that my journey to where I am today wasn't always so great. But I want to tell you about one secret that has accelerated my success beyond all belief. And in another episode upcoming, I am bringing on a special guest named Justin Benton, who is an expert in personal development. I have been studying an individual named Russell Brunson for about 10 months now. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with him, I urge you to just Google it and do what you need to do. But before you go down that rabbit hole, I want to just say that one of the reasons I think Russell is fascinating is because he believes in this idea called principled entrepreneurship. What is principled entrepreneurship? Well, from how I understand it, it means to go on a path of entrepreneurial activities based on morals and values and principles that are near and dear to your heart, and then delivering your business message and your actions to those through a value-oriented aspect, meaning I am doing what I do so that you get the best value. The secret for me that accelerated my success was this book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Think and Grow Rich is a seminal work that has pioneered a whole area of personal development. And really, if you look at most personal development books today, they stem from Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, which also takes a nod to his earlier work, Law of Success. But now that is my favorite Napoleon Hill book so far. However, I'm sure that I will change my tune when I get more into the Secrets of Success program, which I will share with you when I bring Justin onto the show. So Napoleon Hill studied over 500 of the most successful people in the early 1900s, and he distilled principles that were common among all of these individuals. In Think and Grow Rich, he codified that, or rather put that down as 13 principles. And the takeaway that I want you to leave with today is that by implementing these principles in your life, you will be able to move yourself forward in ways that you likely never expected. So it was shortly after I put the bottle down for real that I began a inward journey of transforming who I used to be to become a better man. And I started a book club. I got on Meetup and just started my own meetup with the intention to bring in like-minded individuals that were on a path of personal development. And through my readings in jail of Napoleon Hill and others, I thought that this was a great way to explore how to transform myself and to be of service to others. And I eventually became really good friends with an individual that I met at this meetup named Ed Van Dyne, and invited him to be the chairman of the board of trustees for Blooming Health Farms. And his guidance and support over these past few years has been monumental towards my success, both from a business perspective and from a professional perspective. We would meet regularly every week to sit down at a local coffee shop. We'd go through the book chapter by chapter, and then we would discuss what we learned and how it applied to our ambitions. Ed Van Dyne is a prolific inventor. He has some accolades that sit in the Smithsonian, and he's also a very talented artist who has built some sculptures for Burning Man. And his proclivity to develop and create and everything has hyper influenced me to create probably more than I have ever needed to for what I'm doing now. I got a bit of the creative bug for a while, and every week or so I had a brand new business idea that I would try to implement, and Ed would essentially proverbially slap me across the face and say, "Sean, no, stick to what you know." So I tried as best I could, and it took until I met a kid named Kwani to really see the power of focus. That focus has allowed me to accelerate our outreach and to be more impactful in the community because of what we're doing with food security, and personal development. Really, I now implement the principles in Think and Grow Rich within all those that come across our path here at Blooming Health Farms. And I actually use Think and Grow Rich for a teaching tool and integrate that into aspects of our business in obvious and in subtle ways. And over time, I've actually discovered the power of sharing this personal development philosophies, and it's expanded my vision of what it means and allowed me to see even more of the impact Napoleon Hill has made on others. So real quick before I go, I want to share with you a few of the versions of Think and Grow Rich that I believe would be applicable to you out there, depending on where you are on your journey or who you may be as an individual. And I'm really going to call out three major versions of Think and Grow Rich, and I'll tell you why. I love the original restored edition of Think and Grow Rich. It is a navy blue book that has some gold lettering on it, and that book there is most true to the original works. And one of the reasons that I love that book is because it keeps the essence of what Napoleon Hill was trying to study. And I say that for a very particular reason. A common criticism of Think and Grow Rich, especially the mass market paper book that came out, in the 70s, one of the major criticisms is that it was very, I guess for lack of better words, very masculine and used a lot of male pronouns, and inadvertently would dissuade or discourage women from identifying and recognizing the morals, the lessons, and the principles in that book. When I recognized that disparity, I searched out for another version of Think and Grow Rich called Think and Grow Rich for Women by Sharon Lechter. This book is a fantastic perspective of what it means to be a woman, and Sharon does an excellent job of using other successful women to show you the principles and how they can apply to you from a different perspective. So if you are a woman out there, I encourage you to pick up both copies of them, but tend to focus on the Think and Grow Rich for Women by Sharon Lechter. Now, the other version of Think and Grow Rich that I absolutely adore, and I didn't know how powerful it was until I started working with a couple individuals in our community who are, different than me. I have a kid that is from Eastern Africa. His name is Kwani, and I mentioned him earlier. And I was doing my best to instill these lessons of principled entrepreneurship and the other key principles in Think and Grow Rich. And as we were talking about it, I could see the disconnect because he could not identify with, quote, old white men that were successful. And I was like, all right, I did my best to try to draw the parallels in there. Well, while trying to make those connections, I came across another wonderful work by a man named Dennis Kimbo, Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice. And I, at first, just ordered some books and gave them to Kwani and another individual named Elliot to see how it resonated with them. And it wasn't until I got a letter in the mail from Elliot while he was in jail that it truly hit me on the impact and power of these principles once you're able to break down those seeming barriers that can exist across cultures, across all these different things. And so I ordered a copy of Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice, off of Amazon and sent it to the Weld County Jail to Elliot so that he would have some good food for thought while he was sitting there undergoing the legal process. And thankfully, he was able to get out of jail without any charges, which is a whole other thing that I will unpack some other time. But what he told me was that he read that book from cover to cover, and he could immediately identify with the stories that Dennis was able to bring to life in there. So I want to leave today with a call to action for you. Go out and get Think and Grow Rich. Get one of those versions I've mentioned. Definitely get the original. It's always great to have an original for reference. But if you identify differently, I suggest that you take a look at those two books, Think and Grow Rich for Women, and it's for women, and Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice. Check those out, read those books, and you will soon see how those principles can influence your success and help you become the person that you want to be, or that you hope to be, or that's really who you are inside. And we need to just light the fire and flame it up and stoke it so that you can transform. That is all I have today. So thank you for being with me on today's show. I've left those links in the show notes below so that you can just click and go right over to Amazon and get your book. So again, thank you for being with me on another episode of Thinking Outside the Soil. Join us again. Take care and have a lovely day.